Have you ever imagined holding your child in your arms and realizing there is absolutely nothing on earth that can save them? No medicine, no hospitals, no doctors, no antibiotics, not even the hope that tomorrow might bring something better. Now imagine knowing that this wasn't a rare tragedy. It was simply part of life. 20,000 years ago, almost every family lived with this reality, and the numbers are almost impossible to believe. For most of human history, nearly half of all children never reached adulthood. Not because of war, not because of giant predators, but because of things we barely notice today. A tiny cut, a simple fever, dirty drinking water, a cold winter, one failed hunting season. That was often enough to end a child's life. Yet somehow, humanity survived. Parents buried one child, then somehow found the strength to love the next. How? How do you keep loving when your heart has already been broken? For decades, scientists believed they knew the answer. They were wrong. Because hidden beneath Ice Age soil, archaeologists uncovered evidence that completely changed our understanding of prehistoric families. And by the end of this story, you'll see why the greatest survival tool our ancestors possessed wasn't fire. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't even language. It was something far more powerful: love. Imagine opening your eyes before sunrise. The cold bites through your skin. Your stomach is already empty. You don't know if you'll find food today. You don't know if your family will eat tonight. But even hunger isn't your biggest fear. Your biggest fear is the tiny child sleeping beside you. Yesterday they were laughing. Today they have a fever. There is no medicine to give them, no doctor to call, no village healer with a guaranteed cure. Only hope, and hope often lost. Every cough sounds frightening. Every scrape on the skin could become infected. Every winter feels like a test of survival. Modern parents panic when a child becomes seriously ill. Ancient parents lived with that fear almost every single day. Researchers studying prehistoric populations estimate that nearly 1 out of every 2 children died before adulthood. Think about that. Imagine every second child in your school, gone. Every second house on your street, grieving. Every family carrying memories they never wanted. This wasn't one unlucky generation. It happened again and again for thousands of years. But then something unexpected appeared beneath the frozen ground of what is now the Czech Republic. A discovery so emotional that it forced archaeologists to rethink everything they believed about prehistoric people. It looked like a tiny grave. At first, nothing unusual, until they examined it more closely. The tiny grave belonged to an infant who had lived nearly 26,000 years ago. Today, the place is known as Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic. When archaeologists first uncovered it, they expected to find nothing more than another prehistoric burial. Instead, they found something deeply human. The child's body had been placed with extraordinary care, not thrown away. Not abandoned, carefully positioned, protected. Someone had taken the time to prepare a proper farewell. Now think about what that really means. This happened during the Ice Age. Food was never guaranteed. Every hour spent mourning meant one less hour hunting, one less hour gathering firewood, one less chance of survival. Yet someone still chose to stop, to grieve, to honor a child who would never grow up. And then archaeologists noticed something even stranger. This wasn't an isolated case. Across Europe, across Asia, the same heartbreaking pattern kept appearing. Tiny graves decorated with shell beads. Children covered in red ochre, a pigment many ancient cultures associated with life, blood, and remembrance. Small tools and precious objects carefully placed beside their bodies. These weren't random burials. They were messages. Silent messages left behind by parents whose names we will never know. Parents who wanted their children to be remembered. Suddenly, one old belief began to fall apart. For years, many people imagined prehistoric humans as creatures concerned only with survival. Cold, primitive, emotionless. But the evidence told a completely different story. These parents didn't bury their children because they had to. They buried them with care because they loved them. And love costs something. It costs time. It costs energy. It costs tears. The greatest surprise wasn't that children died. The greatest surprise was that grieving was considered worth the cost. Then researchers began asking a new question. If these parents loved their children so deeply, Why did so many children still die? The answer wasn't hidden in the graves. It was hidden inside the children's bones. And what scientists discovered there revealed a silent record of pain, one that had remained untouched for tens of thousands of years. The clues hidden inside the graves were heartbreaking, but the real story was written inside the children's bones. When bioarchaeologists carefully examined prehistoric skeletons, they discovered strange horizontal marks running through the bones of many children. Today, scientists call them Harris lines. They aren't wounds. They aren't diseases. They're something even more tragic. They form when a child's body completely stops growing because of extreme stress, severe hunger, a life-threatening illness, weeks without enough food. Then, if the child somehow survives, the body begins growing again, leaving behind a permanent scar inside the bone. Think about what that means. Every single line represents a moment when death came frighteningly close, but didn't win. Not yet. One line: a brutal winter survived. Another: a deadly infection overcome. Another: months of starvation somehow endured. Some children carried several of these lines, again and again and again, each one telling the same silent story. I survived this time, but for many, there was no next recovery. The final illness left no new line, only silence. As heartbreaking as that discovery was, scientists found another clue that revealed something extraordinary about ancient mothers. Using isotope analysis on prehistoric teeth and bones, researchers discovered that mothers living in the harshest environments breastfed their children much longer than expected. Why? Because breast milk was often the safest food on Earth. No contaminated water, no spoiled meat, no dangerous bacteria. Every extra month of breastfeeding dramatically increased a child's chances of surviving. Imagine a mother walking for miles across frozen landscapes, searching desperately for food, barely eating enough herself, yet still feeding her child first, every single day. Not because anyone taught her, not because science existed, but because thousands of years of experience had already taught generations of mothers one painful lesson: protect the child at any cost. Then anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies discovered something equally powerful. Among groups such as the Ake of Paraguay and the Hadza of Tanzania, the death of a child was never treated as a private tragedy. The entire community stopped. The entire community mourned. Because losing one child wasn't just one family's loss. It was the tribe losing part of its future. One less hunter, one less mother, one less protector, one less storyteller, one less life that could carry the next generation forward. Suddenly, those tiny Ice Age graves made perfect sense. The shell beads, the red ochre, the careful burials. None of it was wasted effort. It was humanity refusing to let love disappear, even when hope already had. But perhaps the biggest surprise was still waiting. For decades, scientists believed ancient parents protected themselves by loving their children less. The evidence would soon prove exactly the opposite. For years, many researchers believed they had solved the mystery. If ancient parents lost so many children, surely they must have loved them less. Surely keeping an emotional distance was the only way to survive. It sounded reasonable, but archaeology told a completely different story. The careful burials, the shell beads, the red ochre, the months, sometimes years, of extended breastfeeding, the communal mourning, every piece of evidence pointed toward the same conclusion. Ancient parents didn't love their children less. If anything, they loved them just as deeply as we do today. Some evolutionary psychologists now believe that humanity's greatest strength was never the absence of grief. It was the ability to continue despite it. Imagine burying your child, then waking before sunrise the very next morning because the rest of your family still needed food. Imagine carrying unbearable heartbreak, yet still finding the strength to protect another child, to smile again, to hope again, to love again. That may have been one of the greatest evolutionary advantages our species ever developed. Not stronger muscles, not sharper weapons, not even a larger brain, but resilience, the ability to stand back up after life had broken you. That quiet strength may have saved humanity more times than any invention ever could. Today, when a child develops a fever, most parents rush to a hospital. Clean water, vaccines, modern medicine, antibiotics. These are miracles of the modern world. For us, losing a child has become a rare tragedy. For our ancestors, it was a constant shadow that followed every family. And yet, the emotions they felt are still alive inside us. The fear when your child is sick, the instinct to hold them close, the sleepless nights, the overwhelming relief when they finally recover. None of these feelings are modern. They are ancient. They have been carried through thousands of generations. Your love for your child didn't begin with you. It was inherited from parents who survived ice ages, famines, disease, and unimaginable loss. Every hug you give your child today carries the memory of countless mothers and fathers who wish they could have held theirs just one day longer. So, the next time you watch your child laugh, or hear their voice, remember this. 26,000 years ago, a mother sat beside a fire, holding her child with the very same love. She didn't know if the sun would rise on another day together, but she loved anyway. And perhaps that is the greatest story in human history. Humanity wasn't built only by intelligence, or by tools, or by fire. It was built by ordinary parents who refused to stop loving, even when survival was never guaranteed. If this story changed the way you see our ancestors, leave a comment below and tell us what surprised you the most. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories of human history, evolution, and the science behind what makes us human, make sure to subscribe, because the next story may completely change the way you see yourself.